sunshine I gotta love, and I know that it's all mine.
Hi there, my name is Hillary, and in today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to adjust existing families to fit your project. So I'm not going to go into how to model a parametric family or how to model a family, but I'm going to show you where to download families and how to adjust families that are already in the Revit library. So I've just created this quick little project here. Oh, and I'm now in Revit 2021, and so it's a little bit different, including the levels show up in 3D, and you can change how big they are with the scale. So just to recap, Revit families are sort of like mini projects. So when you click File, New, there's an option to create a project, which is obviously what we're in, and families. And so families are usually found in this component button. So you can either model in place a component, which is not a family. That's just using extrusions and creating forms within your project, or you can place a component, which is placing a family. So you can click Place Component, and there should be some already loaded in. So these are families that are automatically loaded in. So I have a desk, for example. The ones from the generic Revit library are usually going to come with this drop-down menu for different sizes. So I can place a family by clicking, and I can see in 3D that it is right there. So I can change the size and maybe what it looks like by changing this. But if you want to customize that even further, you can click Edit Type. And here are the properties related to that family. So in Revit families, there are parameters, and a parameter is kind of an overused word, but in Revit, it represents something that can change, I believe. When you're making families, you can create parameters. So you can, for example, create a dimension parameter, which is like really frequently used. So you can make, for example, a window where the width and height are dimensions that have been turned into parameters. So when it's loaded, when the family is loaded into the project, you can click on that family, and in the properties panel, you'll have height, width, depth, those dimension parameters. They can be listed here. You can also make parameters that are visibility parameters. So for example, if you want one of these drawers not to show up, you can make a visibility parameter that those modeled elements in the family turn off when this parameter is, let's say, unchecked. You can also have parameters that are materials, which are what you're seeing in this example. So there are type parameters and there are instance parameters. Instance parameters show up in the properties panel right here. And so this family doesn't have any instance parameters, but if it did, you would see them right here. And those instance parameters control just that singular instance. So I can place this desk over and over and over again, but if there were instance parameters, I could change them and make every single instance different. And then there are type parameters, which are basically the same, except for that you have to click Edit Type to see the parameters. So all of the parameters for this furniture desk are type parameters, and they are here. And those are the material parameters and the dimension parameters here. So this drop-down menu shows us these types. And you can always duplicate the type and or rename the type. But so if I change the top material to be something other than cherry, let's say concrete, that is only going to change in this instance. So for example, if I close that, and if I now change it to be this instance, and I go Edit Type, you can see that that material is still cherry. So I only changed, so that parameter only affected the type. I know this is kind of confusing, but it'll make more sense when we get into editing families and creating families. But for now, basically parameters are things that you can change. And sometimes they show up in the type, and sometimes they show up just in the properties panel. So this is the first way to edit or change a family, is changing the parameters. So if you don't want to be limited by these sizes, for example, and you want this like custom size, but you still want it to be this family because you don't feel like putting the effort into modeling, let's say, a desk family, you can say edit type, duplicate, say new size, whatever you might want to write the size. And then we can change this to be so much bigger. Okay. Now it got bigger, and now that type has been added to our little drop-down list. So the majority of our families, like I said before, are component. Every loaded in component is a family, but also families are, for example, windows, doors. So it's the exact same process as it was for that desk. If you want to change, for example, a window, if you want to change the dimensions and totally customize those dimensions and the material. So I can click on one of these, or I can create my own, say duplicate, name it something, and let's change the width. So it's the exact same process, and same goes for doors. If you ever want to see all of your families that are in the project, you can just click in the project browsers, you have this beautiful list of all of the families. So you can click plus, and then you can see the doors that are already loaded in, the sizes, and if you were to load in any doors that you, let's say, loaded in from the Revit library, or if you were to download them from the internet, they would show up perfectly in their categories here. Now, if you want to change something in a family, you can create a new family, like I said, by going File, New Family. But I'll get to this in a later video. But if you want to edit this family, you can click Edit Family. And now this family will pop up. So the family, like I said, is like a small, tiny miniature project that gets loaded into a real project. So you have, just like in the project, your views here. I'm just going to change this to be shaded. So if I change anything in this family, it's going to change for all of those instances. So you want to be really careful if you're editing families, know that you're changing it for good. Let's say I don't like these. I don't actually want those handles, so I can delete them. So I could also add things to this family, for example, extrusions, but I haven't showed you how to make parametric families yet. So I'll get into that in another video, but if you add things here, they might not respond perfectly how you would expect them to when you, let's say, change the width or height. Those, let's say if you add a shelf, they might not respond to the width and the height as you change or adjust the family in the project. So it's super easy to, let's say, just like delete bits of the family and then load that into your project. Overwrite existing version, just always click that. And now we have an even simpler looking desk. So if you want a family that is not already loaded into the project, so when you click window, these are all of the windows that we have downloaded into this project. So we can add more. Revit has a library that you can load families from, and they're just not loaded into the project automatically because that would make the project super heavy. So we can just click load family. Okay, so I just realized that when I downloaded Revit 2021, something must have messed up, and this sometimes happens when you download Revit. The libraries sometimes don't fully download. So if you were using Revit, you would then have more folders here. For example, windows, doors, furniture, specialty equipment. There would be a really giant list of folders, and then in each of those folders, you would have more families that you can download, or you can click open, and those families would be added to your project really simply. So now I'm going to show you where I like to download families from. So if you really quickly Google Revit families download, there are tons and tons of websites that people have just like uploaded families that you can basically take. But some more common ones that have a lot of stuff that you might need are Revit City and BIM Object. Revit City, for example, you have to create an account. It's free, so you can just create an account and then you can search, and you can search whatever you want. So let's say desk. Okay, let's try this one. Download now. So in this example, we have so you can tell it's a family first off, because there's this little button over here that is load into project. So families, you can always load into project, but you can't load a project into a project. So in this desk family, you can find its parameters if there are any, and sometimes there aren't any if you downloaded them from the internet. But you can see its parameters by clicking on this, this information here, family types. And so it does look like they have some parameters set, and that is for the materials. So that's nice. But they don't have any dimensions to change. So you can also nest families into families. So for example, this is a desk family, but they have already loaded in this computer family and this chair family. So now when I load this one desk family into the project, it's going to include all those other little families. And nesting families is really helpful because it makes the files more workable. So for example, this computer family might be really detailed, and so it gets heavy and hard to work with, but as soon as you load it into another family, it's nice and clean and loads really quickly. Sorry for that aside. I'm going to click load into project. This is going to show me which project I can load it into. Yes, I'm going to click project 1. So when you load a family into the project for the first time, it should automatically pop up as it's ready to place. So I'm going to place it. And of course, I can always move it by clicking modify, align. I can align it. Here, click escape. Change your view to shaded by clicking SD. So now I can go back to my 3D view, and I'm going to make my section box disappear so it gets big. And there we go. So now we have this family in our little office. So I'm just going to show you one last tip for adjusting families in your project. If you don't like the look of the materials that are automatically created, for example, I hate the brown that are always in the doors. I kind of like my project to be all one material like gray or something. You can click on this door, click edit type, and we can change the door materials. So I'm going to say material door, the door panel. I'm going to click this little button here. And now I have all of my materials that are in this project. So I'm going to say create new material here. And I'm going to rename it generic panel. And I'm going to make it, let's say, light gray. Okay. So I can keep it like this. I can also add images if you want there to be a texture. And I'll get into this a little bit more when I show you how to render in Revit, but you can just totally customize your materials and create new materials in this panel here. So I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to click OK again. And now you can see that my door panel is no longer that ugly brown, but it is now gray. So I think that's all that I'm going to show you today. This is just a taste on how to adjust families to fit your project. So I hope this helps. I know I didn't cover that much, so let me know if there's anything else in the comments that you want me to touch on, and I will show you in another video how to render and how to create a parametric family, so that will get more into how to create a family from scratch. Thank you.
For the sunshine, I gotta love, and I know that it's